So, Stephen Kinnock, what's your reaction to this significant shift in Labour Party policy?
Well, look, we can talk about second referendums and general elections until the cows come home. But the reality is that the new Prime Minister is going to be Boris Johnson, and he is not going to come forward with a proposal for a referendum. So even for those who do campaign for a referendum, I'm not one of them. The only way to get it is through the withdrawal agreement bill. That is a bill that Theresa May published and was unfortunately rejected out of hand by my own front bench under pressure from those who are campaigning for a second referendum. But in fact, the only way of getting to that point is by voting for the withdrawal agreement bill, which contains a number of key concessions to Labour. So I actually think a more realistic approach would be if Jeremy Corbyn were to say to the new Prime Minister, look, table the withdrawal agreement bill, we will vote for it at second reading, and then when it gets to committee stage, we can have a debate and a vote on whether that should be put to a second referendum. That would be a far more pragmatic and realistic way of taking this forward.
Might be more pragmatic and realistic, but what many Labour Party members are saying is they want clarity and they want the party to be a Remain party, and that if they had been a Remain party, they'd have done a lot better at the European elections where the Liberal Democrats cleaned up with the Remain vote.
Yes, but the story of the last 3 years has been politicians and many others saying what they want and why they want it, but not explaining how they're actually going to get there. We are looking down the barrel of a catastrophic no-deal crash-out on the 31st of October. Boris Johnson has made it clear that we will leave the EU come hell or high water on that date. Our top priority has to be to prevent that happening. And you can have all sorts of virtue signalling and unicorn chasing about how you're going to get a second referendum. But until we actually vote the withdrawal agreement bill through, we won't have a deal on the table that we could have a second referendum about. And by the way, the withdrawal agreement bill contains major concessions to Labour on a customs union, on environmental standards, and a bill on workers' rights. So it is the product of the cross-party talks. This is about compromise now. Compromise is not a dirty word. Our democracy will struggle to survive if we are unable to compromise.
Well, but party members will say to you, this is about party democracy. They want Labour to be a Remain party, openly campaigning for another referendum, openly campaigning that Labour should call for Remain, and effectively you are out of step with the party membership.
Well, look, I think the top priority is the fact that Boris Johnson is going to crash us out on the 31st of October without a deal. That is going to have a massively negative impact on the British economy, on our national security, and on the Northern Irish peace process. And I think every Labour Party member and supporter and member of Parliament should have that at the top of their priority list. The only way to prevent a no-deal crash out is to vote the withdrawal agreement bill through, because you can actually amend that bill to make it illegal for the UK to leave without a deal, because it's in primary legislation. But without that, we can't bind the hands of the government. We can't have a debate and a vote on whether it should be put to a second referendum. We can't create a Brexit deal that would be really aligned with Labour's priorities. So we've got to get real. We've got to think really now about the how, not just the why and the what. We can campaign as much as we want and protest as much as we want, but if we don't wake up to this reality, we are going to see a massive self-inflicted wound on the United Kingdom on the 31st of October, and it has to be our priority to prevent that from happening.
But surely your priority also has to be to get out of the doldrums in the opinion polls, which is where Labour is at the moment, and one of the ways, arguably, of doing that is some real clarity on its position on Brexit. And the position you've outlined, with respect, is a little bit nuanced, perhaps.
Well, politics is complex. It is nuanced. The story of the last 3 years has been lots of bandwagon jumping and single-issue opportunism and polarising our politics. The Liberal Democrats on the one hand and the Brexit Party on the other have polarised us, and they've paralysed us. And the problem with that paralysis is that the legal default position is if there's no alternative deal on the table, we crash out on the 31st of October. We've got to break the deadlock. We've got to break the logjam. can, we've got to put the country first. And by the way, I think on the politics of it, we need to take the air out of the Brexit balloon. If we can do that, I think we can get politics back to where it should be, the bread and butter issues of jobs, security, public services, the things that people on the doorstep in my constituency really want to talk about.
One other issue that people are talking about with the Labour Party is anti-Semitism, of course, and we've got 3 Labour peers resigning the whip. What do you make of that tonight?
Look, I think it's shameful what our party has got itself embroiled in. I am devastated by it. I've campaigned for much of my adult life for Palestinian rights, but I've never allowed that to tip into any anti-Semitic words or sentiments. I think that there are pockets of our party that are driven by bizarre and crazy conspiracy theories about capitalist plots that are led by Jewish financiers. It's wrong. It's not Labour. We need to root it out. It is evil. I understand why my colleagues from the Lords have done what they've done. I'm deeply disappointed by it, but I am going to stand and fight and stay and fight for the values that I think define the Labour Party. We've got to save our party from this evil. We've got to root it out. We've got to expel anyone that has ever expressed any of these disgusting views. And we've got to once again give the British people a Labour Party that they can be proud of.
Stephen Kinnock, grateful to you for your time. Thank you very much for being with us on BBC News. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now then, with a little over a fortnight to go until the new leader of the Conservative Party is announced and the next Prime Minister, we are looking at the policies being promoted by the 2 contenders. Yesterday we looked at Jeremy Hunt's plans if he were to get the keys to number 10. So today, of course, it is the turn of Boris Johnson. He's not here with me in the studio, but Chris Morris is our reality check correspondent, taking us through some of Boris Johnson's policy proposals. And let's start off with Brexit.
Yeah, we have to start there, don't we? Number 1 item on the in tray of whoever wins. And as we know, Boris Johnson's main deal on Brexit is